Hey everyone. When Campfire became involved in the project as the interior design partner along with WPA and the GROW team, we started by facilitating a strategic kickoff with the full team. For us, any design project we work on, our goal is always to begin with a strong strategic foundation so we can have a good idea of everybody's vision and be all on the same page before we get started. With the assembly project, we were lucky in that we were starting far from the beginning. The GROW team and the WPA team had done an extensive amount of research and planning before we got started. So our strategic kickoff was really focused on reviewing and organizing that research. We looked at aligning what it meant, what that research meant, and how we wanted to infuse that into Assembly's goals. We started by looking at an overall picture of what would success mean for this project, and we honed in on big picture goals, what the vision was, and really where they wanted to move forward. We talked about the different users of the building, what was important to them, how they might use the space, what would be a big motivator to them to become a part of the building. And we talked about some similar spaces that GROW had visited and explored. Like Drew mentioned in that video, it's not a typical co-working or it's not a typical office, it's not a typical shared space. It really is kind of its own thing. So we talked a lot about the other spaces that they liked and what we could learn and glean from them. And then finally, we honed in and clarified on what the assembly space wanted to be known for. How would they differentiate themselves as kind of this world-class space for really incredible, innovative businesses and companies to be a part of? This overall conversation really helped us clarify what the big picture vision for Assembly was and how that would impact the design of the space. To wrap up that strategic brainstorm, we moved from kind of like big picture dialogue and ideas over to visuals and did an exercise that we like to call Pinterest IRL, or in real life. And we looked at a number of images and basically laid out a big collection of photography for each key space within the assembly project. Then we had the GROW team review those spaces, review those images, and create basically a spectrum or sort of a tapestry of images from I'm really loving this to I'm not so into this. And then we layered in key Post-it notes so they could call out special elements of I'm really into sort of what's happening in this specific space, or this aspect of this image isn't really drawing me into it, and then kind of layered in some of those vision and goals. Overall, this series of exercise really allowed us to get the full team to align on the vision, goals, and key inspiration for the project from the very beginning.
Yeah, so like Christie mentioned, aligning as a team from the start was incredibly important for the project, especially the scale. And that applied really to our collaboration and communication approach as well. There were really three main elements to our team's collaboration approach. It was our models, our file structure, and our communication methods. And that really created a super integrated approach across the team. So the next slide shows an example of our work in collaboration with WPA and the client, specifically for the second floor upfit. Which we worked on as well, and that is GROW's tenant space. It's about a 10,000 square foot space. So for our models, it was really important to get on the same page early on. Campfire works largely in SketchUp and WPA works in Revit. I'm sure you guys experienced that a lot as you're working across different industries. And so by first establishing who would be modeling what, setting up layer standards, obviously an origin point, seemed like super basic things, but it was really key to us to be able to streamline the ability to link our models together and quickly create VR models, virtual reality models for the client to review. That was one of the main ways that we got decisions to advance design and really streamline the process. Similarly, for file structure, it sounds simple enough, but keeping a super organized folder system in Google Drive allowed anyone on the team, including the client, to access files easily, and it saved us a lot of back and forth. And finally, aligning on communication methods was also really invaluable. Between our two teams, we actually set up a specific shared Slack channel just for the project. And this allowed us to really have a cohesive approach when we were tasked with solving different problems and making sure we were on the same page when we would present back to the client. And as for the client side, we really decided to flex the use of Google Slides. It was super simple, but a really effective way of making sure that whenever the client would give us feedback, that it was just really clear and easy to understand. You can kind of see a snippet in the bottom right of this slide of an example of one of the feedback slides that we got. And this just made sure that it was captured really specifically. We had kind of a paper trail to make sure that we were all on the same page. And as a bonus, with Grow's team, they were obviously very adaptable with technology given the industry that they're in. And that was a huge help on this project as we navigated this project completely remotely. This portion of the project, it kicked off in March of last year. So right as we all went into our homes to work remotely, we all had to kind of navigate. And this was the first project we did kind of entirely virtually.
I think that kickoff meeting we had was our only in-person meeting.
Our only in-person meeting, for sure. You know, we've talked a lot about the history of the building, and thank you to CPG for giving us a little history on that. And of course, this was going to inform the design vision for the project quite a bit. Our challenge was really to figure out a way to honor the historic character of the building by balancing the use of classic details with modern design. The main features of the interior design are meant to feel at home in a historic space without actually replicating or mimicking the exact details of the building's era. So we decided to embrace this balance through a subtle but intentional gradient of classic design elements to more modern details as occupants and guests move through the building. So essentially that means the lobby space will include the most classic or timeless elements, and once you get to the roof, you'll find the most modern details and types of furniture. You can kind of see a diagram of that on the top left, and then on the bottom left, you can see a top view of kind of the vestibule design and how that's a super classic vestibule floor, very typical of the era of the building. And then as we work through the building on the images on the right, you can start to see how the design starts to feel a lot more modern, especially once you get to the top of that atrium space. In addition to that delicate balance, Assembly's overall interior is designed to feel much more kind of like a cozy boutique hotel rather than a traditional office space. It's kind of this hybrid of not co-working, not traditional office, and all these shared amenities and kind of the hospitality elements really played a key in the development of the design. So the space is really designed to connect this creative and innovative community of tenants. So we've got lounge spaces, meeting rooms, and really the atmosphere is meant to feel as welcoming, comforting, flexible, and obviously inspiring as possible. And so next we want to talk about a few surprises. So with any good project, you know, there's going to be more than a few unexpected moments during construction, and especially that's true with a historic project, the renovation. But luckily for the interior side of the project, this collection of found artifacts was kind of a welcome addition to the design. So during demo, the contractors found some unusual, surprising, and historic artifacts that were captured really in time and in walls. There was kind of some hidden spaces within the building. So you can see some of these objects on this slide. We found, you know, old department store boxes, tins, historic photographs, you know, World War I era newspapers, and even historic furniture. So we worked with the Grow team to design some gallery walls, shelving areas, things like that to really feature throughout the building, repurposed furniture. You can see some of those images on this slide. The top image, you can see that gallery wall, and that table in the foreground is actually a table that we're repurposing that was original to the building. It's an old boardroom table that we're kind of adapting. But one of the more exciting discoveries during demo was actually a hidden room. It was a fur vault. And so it was once home to the original department store's collection of valuable furs and kind of fur accessories. And it's now being used as inspiration to the large shared boardroom that's on the same floor. And as you can kind of see in that top middle image, the contractor was able to salvage the old fur vault door frame. It's actually on my to-do list and Rob's as well this week to try and figure out how we're going to incorporate that salvage door frame into the actual door into the boardroom. There's also several other elements that are found typical to a fur vault, kind of this top left images, reference image that we have, that we're starting to take cues and elements of details and integrate them into the kind of the systems furniture and the rest of the architecture and interior design of the space.